Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, along with my wonderful wife, Janet. And for those of us that are following us on Instagram today in the live stream, we are trying to do our best to do a portrait stream, but it's not working. So we're going to have to make some changes there in the future. So our guest today, Katie Stewart, was not able to make it. She was sick, so she's going to be rescheduling. But her topic was beauty from the inside out, which basically is what we eat and how we treat our bodies makes our skin, affects our skin. So Janet, you want to talk about that?
I do. So, if you've been following us, you know we've interviewed a beautiful lady by the name of Bella. She's a steak and butter girl. And she shared a story with us about how she developed such mental anxiety in performance. She was a pianist, I believe, and on a major scale. And so, professional uh, musician. And she was struggling because she had such poor skin health. She had cystic acne. She felt horrible. She had stage fright. It affected her memory as to how well she could um, play until she found what worked for her. And it was nutrition. And I think sometimes in the medical field, we always reach for the toolbox that brings out big pharma, and we never address the elephant in the room. I mean, we talk about this a lot when we go to conferences about what's the elephant in the room, what's the things that we do every single day that impacts her overall health. And for Bella, she actually was a vegetarian or a vegan. I'm not really sure at this point. But when she shares her story, when she finally changed her diet, it took care of all her mental stress, her anxiety. She lost weight, her acne disappeared. She looked amazing, and she still does today. In fact, we just saw her last weekend in Tampa at Hack Your Health. But to me, that is very, very powerful that her life was impacted and changed by just one simple thing, changing her diet.
Yeah, it reminds me of a disease, eczema, or also known as atopic dermatitis. And the rogue pharmacist Ben Fuchs, great guy that has specialized in skin health for 30 plus years, has a Truth Treatment skincare line. He defines what atopic dermatitis really is.
Right.
And atopic dermatitis, by definition, A means without or outside, and topic, topical. So it's outside of being something that's actually topical of our skin, which means it's inside. But what do we do when we treat eczema? We use all kinds of corticosteroids and all this stuff that they apply externally to the skin. When in reality, even by definition, eczema or atopic dermatitis is also um, by definition not caused by something that's outside of our skin. It's by what we eat.
Right. So I'm going to jump back into, and if you followed us before, you probably have heard us talk about the food pyramid. So the food pyramid basically says that you consume cereals, grains, fruits, vegetables, and very little fat and very little meat and protein. But what we forgot, or we should have known, because we did, but we followed this journey for I don't know how long, probably when the USDA was formed and the FDA was formed and big cereal and big, egg came in, that we push these things. But when we're consulting clients, we talk about the building blocks of our body come from protein. If we ignore protein, we're not going to build new bones. We're not going to build new muscle. Like, we need that for every part of our tissue. Carbohydrates, I'm not vilifying them. We've talked about this before. They are energy. They're an energy source. But your building block, the bricks of our body, has to come from proteins. Fats are great too because we need that as well. But what we've done in our country for what, 3, 4, I don't know how many decades, is that we've taught people the wrong things. And so when we're talking about eczema, cystic acne, all kinds of skin issues, the building blocks come first. If you are a general contractor and you don't have the lumber or the bricks or the blocks to build the great foundation or the cement, how is your house going to stand, right? So we have to think about our temple and realize how our body is building and repairing. And nutrition cannot be ignored. So if you're out there and you're like, I don't, I just live on this and I don't, well, you may not realize underneath your bones are not repairing and rebuilding, and neither are your muscles. And we need that as we age to sustain our body and become or maintain a healthy body mass so we aren't just existing. I mean, I think a lot of people in the United States are existing. We're not thriving. Some places do a better job of this, but you need protein, period.
Yeah, and eat real food,
Yeah.
and non-inflammatory foods. And animal proteins are one of the things that are non-inflammatory. Janet, see if you can get closer. So for our Instagram stream, can you do that? There.
I'll squeeze it. I'm not afraid.
Yeah, poke in more. There we
We should
go.
be sharing my chairs.
Yeah, yeah. We're trying to stream portrait mode on Instagram, so we have to get really close. They just changed that, and we're going to see just how this works. So hopefully don't mind us getting close here. We are married. Um, so um, now I forgot what I was saying. What was I saying?
Well, we were just talking about building blocks and food.
Oh yeah, eat real food. So
Mhm.
animal protein is non-inflammatory. So when you have a skin reaction, psoriasis,
Acne.
acne, eczema, those are all inflammatory diseases. And one of the things that we do give in medicine is we give basically really powerful anti-inflammatories, whether it be, corticosteroids, or whether it be drugs to knock your immune system down because
Mhm.
your immune system is having an overreaction. So, well, how do you prevent your immune system from having an overreaction? Well, it's what you eat normally and what you put in your bodies. And animal protein, specifically red meat, is very, very anti-inflammatory. There is such a small percentage of people that have a intolerance or um, allergy to red meat. In fact, it's almost non-existent. It is out there. Now, when it comes to pork, when it comes to chicken, there's a few more people that do have problems, but still, it's a lot less than plants. And I'm not vilifying plants. I do believe as humans that we are omnivores and we are meant to eat plants and to eat animals. Um, but I will say, if you're sick, whether you have diabetes or whether you have some kind of inflammatory disease like rheumatoid arthritis
Yes.
or some kind of skin disease, it could be your diet. And the first thing I would eliminate is plants. Think about how plants are designed. I'm going to give the example of a jalapeno pepper. Jalapeno peppers, like a lot of peppers, they get their heat from capsaicin. Why do plants produce capsaicin? Capsaicin is what causes the pepper to be hot. Okay, and each pepper, whether it be a jalapeno, which is like 50,000 Scoville units, defines how hot the pepper is. I think a ghost pepper has like 1,000,000 Scoville units. By the
Mhm.
way, good little trivia here. Scoville units that are rated how hot to rate how hot peppers are. That was a pharmacist. Sclovian was a pharmacist that actually designed that rating scale. Pretty cool. I like it when you hear stories of pharmacists being innovative. Um, I
So
Can I go still?
Yeah.
Okay. So why do peppers produce um
Capsaicin.
capsaicin? Because they don't want animals to eat them. Animals will find out that they're hot, and then they'll say, no, those are bad to eat. Okay. So they're doing that as a defense mechanism. They're not meant to eat. And there's many plants like that. Um, the nightshade plants, they have drugs in them that are poison, that we get drugs out of. Actually, the nightshade plants, we get drugs out of belladonna, for instance, that can actually kill you. Mushrooms, for instance, muscarinic mushrooms. I mean, the reason they have muscarine in it, which is where atropine comes from and can be very deadly, is so animals don't eat them. Now, I'm not saying that we can't do that. I'm not saying that we can't use not muscarinic mushrooms. Do not eat those. But we can't use certain mushrooms or certain peppers in our food to help spice them up. But you know what? If you are having a problem and you are sick or you have an inflammatory disease, there's lots of inflammatory diseases out there. Um, then I would stay away from plants. And when it comes to fruits are actually meant to eat. That's why they're sweet. It's how they propagate. So an animal eats a fruit, and fruits typically have seeds on the inside. So an animal eats a fruit, and humans are one of the only animals that don't eat fruits whole. We take the seeds out of them. So an animal eats a fruit, they swallow the seeds, they go around wherever they go around traveling, and then they excrete the seed, and then the seed is then the fruit can propagate because it can grow somewhere else, and it's fertilized with urea in the animal's excrement. I mean, beautiful design. Um, and the animals are literally a vector on how to spread the fruit. So fruits are meant to be eaten, but fruits have changed a lot, and not everybody should eat fruit. If you're diabetic or if you don't have stable blood glucose, then you should definitely stay away from fruit.
Yeah. So, just as a personal side of things, Sean and I traveled to Tampa for Hack Your Health, and we spent 2 days in Tampa, well, Winter Haven, Florida, in the
The
sun.
barefoot water ski capital of the world.
2 complete days, and I didn't burn. And we've traveled to Hawaii, we went to different places like that. And the reason I'm talking about this is because prior to changing our diet and our lifestyle, man, I was like fried. Um, I still am very thoughtful and careful, but I did not use sunscreen when I was in Tampa. And the only thing that I can really contribute to the difference of my skin in the last maybe what 5, 6 years is the change of internal diet. We don't we do eat carbohydrates, but we don't focus. They are condiments at best, which is great. I mean, there's certain things that I truly enjoy. But proteins and fats have made a huge difference in my skin. And I think there's a lot of times where we kind of forget that. And being, you know, very Scandinavian and very fair, I should be well, I grew up thinking that I would just be red every time I went outside. And so the difference for me is I can be outside and enjoy things a lot longer with far more comfort. And that's amazing to me. And that just happened with diet. I think that's really important. And when we're talking about sunscreens, please don't use the chemical stuff that's out there. If I am going to apply something, I only use like zinc oxide or, mineral base. That's it. All the other stuff out there, no thanks. I don't want any part of it.
Yeah, the pabas and
Mm-mm.
they're basically aromatic benzene rings to absorb the sun rays and UV light, and they're toxic. They're so toxic they're outlawed in Hawaii because they were destroying. When people would put them on in Hawaii, they would go out and then they'd leach
swim
in
and
into coral reefs, and they were destroying the life out there. So they are definitely toxic. Zinc is not. Zinc is natural to our body, so you can use zinc oxide, um, which traditionally was known as sunblock. And it's a natural sunscreen. It's a barrier sunscreen. There's no doubt about it. But when Janet talks about protein, let's just get this straight. When she talks about protein and fat, she is mostly saying focus on animal protein. If you compare plant protein, and I get it, there are vegans and vegetarians out there that talk about how much protein they can get from plants.
mm,
Legumes are probably the highest protein food for plants out there. And the problem with plants is they are mostly fiber. So you have to eat a lot to get enough protein. When you think about when you are eating animal protein, when you are eating red meat, when you are eating chicken, you are eating pure protein mostly. There's some fat in there, especially when it comes to red meat, depending on the cut. But you're mostly eating pure amino acids. Proteins are amino acid chains, and you're eating pure protein, and it's animal protein. So it's got the essential amino acids in it already made from other animals that you only can get from food. Um, there's essential amino acids in our body that we cannot make up without getting from our food. That's why they call them essential. And the plants don't have those essential amino acids. Some of them do, but they're in a small amount compared to animal protein. So let's just get that straight. When we say protein, focus on protein, we're not meaning drinking a protein shake. We're not meaning eating plants or legumes for protein. We're mostly meaning focus on animal protein.
yeah, I agree with that. If that is your lifestyle and you choose to be vegetarian or a vegan, you have to work really hard at getting the right amount of proteins in. Um, and now on the horizon, Sean and I get people sending us via social media or our phone, and we're talking about peptides. Um, I'm not against peptides being helpful to our body, but remember, if you're going to put something else in your body to trigger your body to do what it already knows how to do, the most inexpensive, the most benefits that you can do for yourself is actually food that's real from the animal source: beef, chicken, lamb, bison, elk, deer. I mean, I could keep going on. And I love fish too. Maybe Sean doesn't,
Gazelle,
because you're right. Um,
mountain goat.
yeah, totally. So you can spend so much time and energy about how, oh, I'm gonna heal properly. And I'm not judging. I'm just telling you that the most powerful, the best thing, the easiest thing, the most inexpensive thing that you could do for your body is real protein from real animal sources, because that's what your body knows and understands. That's how we were created. So sometimes we get these things about how in the future we're going to send home peptides for when you have the flu or when you need to rebuild your cartilage and you need to do all these like things, and it's going to be a miracle without any side
There's
effects.
there's no
We're
miracle.
right, there's not, except for nature itself,
Yeah,
right?
sleep, diet,
Diet,
and exercise.
exercise.
That's the miracle. And once you optimize that, which I don't know anybody that has, except maybe some professional athletes, but even then, they have too much stress. So they're probably not healthy either and optimizing their sleep necessarily. Um, then you could go to peptides once you optimize that. But yeah. Speaking of skin health, speaking of experts, um, Chris Moline Fisk was watching and commenting, and she is a skin expert, and she talks about how important fats and proteins are needed for the skin. Thank you, Chris, for that. Chris is one of our podcast guests from like 5 years ago. So go follow her on Facebook. She knows what she's talking about when it comes to skin. What were we talking about?
Natural hacks,
Oh yeah, natural hack.
biohacks.
So I'm just going to talk about peptides because I, I wake up this morning and I've got a question about peptides on my
Every
Facebook
day,
every day,
probably. Yeah.
every day. Big pharma is studying peptides. Do I think there's some
Benefits of
benefits
those,
of some
yes.
peptides? Possibly. But I'm going to give you a couple examples of why I'm skeptical. First of all, I'm skeptical because I'm a realist and I've been a pharmacist for over 30 years. And I'm a pharmacist that doesn't believe in drugs to treat long-term disease. These peptides are drugs, okay? I've realized over the years there's no magic hack for our health, okay? Let's speak of some peptides. So, first of all, insulin is a peptide,
Mhm.
and insulin is life-saving. There is no doubt
Yep.
about it. Okay, so does insulin have any side effects?
Yes.
Insulin is one of the top 3 killers of people in a hospital when it comes to drug therapy.
Mhm.
Potassium and morphine are in there also. Why? Because insulin can lower your blood sugar deadly and be deadly. Okay. So people die from insulin overdose in hospitals all the time and outside of hospitals too. So insulin is a peptide. So be leery when you're scrolling through social media or some gym rat or meathead. Sorry, I'm just saying it is talking about in a locker room how safe peptides are and how they don't have any side effects
Right.
and they can do all this magic. Okay. Well, respond to him and say, well, sir, um, it looks like you've been injecting more things than peptides into your body, but ask him, um, insulin's a peptide. Are you sure this isn't going to have side effects like insulin can? That's a good analogy. Another peptide, the ones that are most popular now, millions of people are on them. And of course, President Trump just made a big statement that he's going to make these peptides cheaper for weight loss. Semaglutide is a peptide, also known as Ozempic. You guys have probably heard of that. That's the magic peptide for weight loss. People that are obese do not have a semaglutide deficiency. Okay. I think we're going to see big problems over the next
Oh,
few
yeah.
years. We already are with semaglutide. So that's a peptide. Remember that. So when there's this magic peptide out there to heal all your injuries, BPC 157, TB 500, I'm not saying they might not be legit, but I'm just going to say be a little bit skeptical. You really should, because there's just no magic hack out there, and I already gave you some examples.
So, if you chose, with no judgment on my part, because I think being overweight is a very serious issue in our country, if you did choose to do semaglutide and all those groups of medications, please be aware that if you are doing that, you need protein. You need protein. And I can't say that enough because when you use semaglutide and all these other ones that they have on the market, your body is going to be wasting. And even if we're losing weight, if we're cutting weight, we're going to be losing muscle, but you're going to be losing bone tissue, muscle tissue, and tissue has to have the building blocks to maintain and repair. And if you're just, you know, cutting your calories and just eating carbohydrates, which are basically sugars, and that's how you are surviving, your provider who prescribed that peptide to you is not doing you any favors because, your heart is a muscle. You don't want to be wasting muscle on your heart tissue. You know, you need good strong leg muscles to stand properly. We need good muscles so we don't have abdominal weight going on. And many people that have went on these medications and then they stop, they're not maintaining their weight loss. So the problem is if you're using them, you may not be getting enough proteins in your diet for the building blocks. So you got a tool and it helped you lose the weight, maybe not in the right places, but how do you maintain your body once the weight's off? You can't do it with, taking semi-glutide for the rest of your life. I mean, to me
Well, you
that
could. I just don't recommend that. And
right?
there's some thoughts that people are going to be doing
Mm,
that. And I
well,
just think taking a drug for the rest of your life for weight loss is just a
no.
bad idea.
So you're setting yourself up for osteoporosis,
Sarcopenia, which
sarcopenia,
is
which is
loss of
loss,
muscle mass.
right? You're setting yourself up for existing and not thriving. And the people that live the longest do not take medications. If you're looking at people that are centenarian, live to be 100 and past 100, most of them are not on any medications, folks. So we need to do this naturally. And I know it sucks when you get up and get on the scale and you're like, But how did that happen? You have to be realistic. So if you are using peptides, just realize that, you know, they might be a tool, but they're not 100% the answer. And that's the scary part is when we get this, oh, there's no side effects, there's none. It's just amazing. And I'm like, so when I hear that from people, I ask them about water. As humans, we are made up, what, 70 some percent, if not more, of just water, right? Well, water can be dangerous in two ways for us. If we don't have enough, we can become dehydrated. If we have too much, we will die of too much water. So you can't, you have to have the balance and you have to have the inputs that are correct because most things can be bad if it's too little or too much. So remember that when you're out there and somebody's selling you something and telling you, oh, there's no side effects. And then like ask them about water. Ask them about
Yeah,
that.
it's
Do they
all
understand
yeah,
that?
it's all about dosing. Yeah, if you get too much water, you can actually dilute your electrolytes, your potassium, your
Fill
sodium,
your lungs
and
up.
then you can't do muscle contractions, including your heart. In fact, more people at Ironman triathlons, more people die from drinking too much water than drinking too little water. And it's usually the age group or athletes that aren't they don't know about this, so they drink water at every aid station because they're worried about dehydrating. And next thing you know, their muscles can't contract because they've diluted their electrolytes. So, little side note there. I love trivia. Let's see. I'm looking at comments. I will say this. So, Janet and I are two pharmacists that do not believe in drugs to treat long-term disease, and we preach sleep, diet, and exercise. Now, for those of you that follow us, you guys know that we specialize in hormone replacement and we talk about the benefits of hormone replacement. When we talk about hormone replacement, we never tell anybody that it's a magic cure all. We still tell them that sleep, diet, and exercise is first and foremost. Hormone balancing can help those things, especially sleep with women, and that's a game changer. Um, and the hormones that we talk about are bioidentical. They're identical to what our bodies make up. So they're not some synthetic type thing that is, injected into your bodies. Most of the peptides outside of insulin are not natural to our bodies. And yes, for those of you that want to understand semantics, bioidentical hormones are synthetic because they are um, they are converted in a lab to be bioidentical. But just because something is synthetic doesn't mean it's not bioidentical. Uh, Thyroid hormone's a perfect example. Levothyroxine, liothyronine. They are synthetic. They are made in a laboratory, but they're identical copies of what's in our body. So that's what's important to realize. Does your body make it up naturally? If my body doesn't make it up naturally, then I'm not going to be put in my body.
So, on the note that Sean's talking about hormones, one of, I think, the most outrageous things that we have ever done in our country is give young teenage girls birth control pills to help with their skin. Did it help initially? Maybe. Maybe it helped her clear up some of that, but diet and exercise and sleep would have done that far better and far more natural. But now we're putting teenagers in chemical menopause. Why would we
Well,
do
we've been
that?
doing that for 40 years.
And from the perspective of this is when your body is building itself. This is so important when your body is putting, your bones together, you're growing your muscle tissue, you're preparing your body, and then let's just leave you on these birth control pills for the rest of your life. Like, so we go, you know, until you want to become pregnant, then you can stop. And then let's keep you on that path through peri and then menopause. And folks, if that's probably one of the most outrageous things that we have done to women and men, because it affects men too. Um, it has been probably one of the biggest lies that Sean and I were taught because they were safe and effective,
Yep.
always safe and effective. We didn't tell anybody about long term, that hey, you're not going to build your bones like you should, maintain your muscles. It's convenient not to have a period. It's convenient because it's clearing your skin up. Let's never talk to somebody about lifestyle. Let's just throw a pill at them and say, here you go. Because 5 seconds later, you're out the door and I'm done with you. I mean, I'm not saying that it hasn't helped people short term, but long
It doesn't
term,
fix the problem.
the long term, it's not the solution for your skin.
And that's a good segue into my book that I'm writing, Lies I Learned in Pharmacy School. You can see the cover that is designed on the screen there. Lies I Learned in Pharmacy School and How to Escape the Grasp of Big Pharma. So if you over in the left, I think it's on your guys' streaming left, over in the top left hand corner, you'll see a QR code. If you scan that code, you can opt into updates for the book. So my goal is the outline is already done. Going to start, I've already put kind of a half a chapter down on paper. Going to start getting more into it next month. And a goal is to be done with the book December 2026 for release in December 2026. So stay tuned for that. There's a chapter on birth control pills. That's a big lie that I learned in pharmacy school about how safe and effective they are. Effective? Sure. They're effective at preventing pregnancy. Are they safe? Absolutely not. They are not even close to being safe. So, and that about wraps up our podcast. So we thank you for tuning in, and we thank you, Instagram viewers. Put your head in there, Janet.
You're pushing
Other
me
way.
up.
We thank you, Instagram viewers, for being patient with us as we learn how to stream both in landscape and portrait. We're going to get there. So thanks for tuning in to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Tune in for Katie Stewart to be rescheduled on our show and talk more about skin health and how what we put in our bodies matters. And tune into our regularly scheduled podcast Monday, 12:30 to 1:30 Pacific Standard Time. Thank you.